And now the 419 with Gretchen DeBacker, Matt Killam, and Kevin Mullen.
Welcome into the 419, powered by WGTE and presented by Witro Wealth Management. I'm Kevin Mullen.
Gretchen DeBacker.
Matt Killam.
We've got an exciting show for you today on a Tuesday edition. This is the time when we normally highlight great people making our community a better place. Our friends at the Community Foundation are sort of passing along some of their friends to say, hey, here's people that we really want to highlight. And we've got a jam-packed show with some incredible people. Gretchen, who have you brought for us today?
Well, thanks to our friends, as you said, at the Community Foundation, we have a couple of representatives from the Junction neighborhood and the Junction Coalition here today. We're going to talk to Alexis Smith in the first segment. So much going on there, so much development, so much positivity. We're excited to get an update.
All right.
Yep.
I'm excited to learn more about what they're doing.
Yep.
This is, as we're in the final week.
This is our second to the last show, right? Isn't our last show tomorrow on the 1st?
I treat every show like it's my last show.
You know what?
That's true.
That's the right way to do it. That's the way to live your life.
Which is people are hoping.
Yeah, that's right. Please tell me this last one. So Friday, this Friday will be our final show of season 1.
Okay, yeah.
And then we'll take a break. And God willing, and the creek don't rise.
Oh, boy.
On the barrel head.
Yeah, we'll be back for season 2.
That's right.
So no, excited. It's been an awesome 6 months of highlighting incredible folks in our community that are making Toledo a better place, that, you know, both through their presence and through their passion, make our community better. And certainly I think we're going to meet 3 individuals that meet that criteria, 4 individuals today that meet that criteria. We will also have Kim Rosinski from the Victory Center is going to join us, talk about some of the great work that they're doing with individuals diagnosed with cancer in Northwest Ohio. I had the privilege to attend a celebrity wait night with them. That was it's just a super fun event. It was a 90s theme, and everybody.
Were you a waiter?
I was a waiter.
Okay.
Thank you for not using the words. I'm not a celebrity, but I was a waiter.
Yeah. You just worked at the restaurant.
That's exactly right. But it was a great time. It was a lot of fun. And I found out that it was a themed event like the day before.
Oh.
That's tough.
And so it was like, the theme is the 90s. And I'm like, well, theoretically, I should own something that I could wear for that.
Just go.
I just went.
Yeah, sure.
I had a great time.
Quarter zip?
You know what? No, I wore a jacket.
Okay.
I was dressed nice because I got to take care of our friends at Hollywood Casino.
Gretchen,
nice.
you're a theme. You're into themes.
I do love themes.
And you are a great party thrower.
Thank you.
Is there a party that you've thrown thematically that is like your number one favorite?
Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Because everything's pink and red and hearts. That's my favorite.
And you
I've
asked
never
your
been
friend
invited
at the
to a
last
Valentine's.
minute.
That's because it's for women.
Unless you're called into service.
Unless I made Matt Killam and Mark Folk were my bartenders.
Yeah.
That was mostly because they wanted to be around the ladies.
That is not the case. We were called to also set up and tear down.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah,
They were
don't
also,
pretend like there was one
They also did that.
thing that was in it for us.
It was all the things.
Yeah,
That's right.
That's right.
I love it. All right, let's take a break.
Okay.
When we come back, we'll dive into our conversation with Alexis Smith
I'm so
from
excited.
the Junction Coalition.
Okay.
We'll be right back on the 419.
Support for the 419 comes from Witro Wealth Management, where we understand that your financial path is personal. Advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. More information at WitroAdvisors.com.
The 419, powered by WGTE, is made possible in part by supporters like you. Thank you.
Welcome back into the 419, powered by WGTE. We're joined now by Alexis Smith with the Junction Coalition. Welcome to the 419.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, good.
It's a beautiful setup and everything.
Thank you.
It's gorgeous.
It takes the distraction away from our faces.
Stop it.
We love having you here. Tell us about Junction Coalition.
Yep.
Yeah, so Junction Coalition is located Central City, Toledo. It's what was known as the Onyx neighborhood. It's been rebranded, dubbed into Junction neighborhood because the Junction Avenue is where a lot of our longest standing sort of local businesses, Black-owned businesses, are located. And so Junction Coalition started really out of just family concern and neighborhood concern. So I've been with it since its conception when I was just 12 years old.
I remember you walking around then.
Yes. And so it started out just a bunch of, adolescents and teens being concerned about the neighborhood, concerned about the elders. We have a large elder population. It is now 80% African American. There's about 51 at the time, but 47% vacancy lots, empty lots, and 51% home ownership. 50% of the community lives under the poverty line. And so it is a designated NERSA community. And what that basically means is there is a high need, right? Yeah. There is a need for quality food. There's a need for quality water, air, soil. It is surrounded by environmental harms and impacts. When you talk about the chemical plants and industry, long-lasting industry that's been there for, legacy, pollution.
Is that exactly
abandoned, right? Yep.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna ask a question I think
Sure.
I think I know the answer to, but I mean the reality is you're growing up in a neighborhood and you're seeing challenges in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Why stay and work on those versus just say, nope, I'm out. I'm moving.
Yeah, I mean, and to some degree, it's a little sentimental, right? Like, I grew up in the house that my mother was raised in, that my great-grandmother raised her son in, and so it's a legacy home, and we own the home, and so my parents had this idea, if we're gonna be here, we should take care of our neighbors, we should take care of each other. And my mom has a saying, for every child she saves, that's one less she has to worry about, taking hers away from her. And so it's that understanding of what is your self-interest of being here, being rooted and planted in this community, that has been sort of forgotten, sort of divested, and,
Let's talk a little bit about your mom and make sure that our audience knows who she is.
Sure, absolutely. Alicia Smith.
Yes.
She is the co-founder and executive director for Junction Coalition. Junction Coalition functioning on 4 pillars of justice and focus areas. So that's environmental, social, economic, and peace education. And so in everything that we do, we think those are sort of the principles in terms of improving quality of life for the neighborhood.
All right, you can't talk about Junction Coalition without talking about Alicia Smith. I'm going to go back a little bit to that NERSA designation. That's a federal designation.
Yes.
And what does that mean for the community in terms of City of Toledo, State of Ohio investments?
It means that there's more investment that now comes back to the community. All of the, during sort of the flight of economic opportunity and assets that left that area, we have an opportunity to bring that back into the community. We have an opportunity to do some beautification projects, whether that is helping folks, do facade improvements to their businesses, whether that is helping folks acquire vacant lots so that they can, add to their property, do some beautification work. We've worked pretty closely with the housing department in the City of Toledo to do some of those improvements in terms of getting people new roofs and just kind of standing in the gap and providing those resources that didn't exist before.
Talk to me a little bit, and in case people don't know, give me the hard boundaries of the Junction neighborhood, just so we have an idea.
Yeah, I would say from Dorr to the Anthony Wayne Trail and from Collingwood to Brown is sort of where that general outline is. And so that covers just over about 7,000 residents.
Gotcha.
And so we don't provide direct service in terms of we go and we're giving all these things, but when it's necessary, we have been known to deliver a case of water for folks whose water has been shut off or they've been living without water. But in most cases, a lot of it is folks just don't know, and you don't know what you don't know, right? And so if there is a homestead opportunity where you're a senior who is living with high water rates, we can help you get connected to the services that allows you to get on a payment plan. So just standing in the gap and being that resource for the community is what we do.
You're a comparatively young person to the old fossils that are on this show. So you have more energy than us, but what you do on a daily basis, your family and and colleagues and friends. I've certainly been at the Junction Coalition a number of times and outside the fence line to work on things with the Metro Parks, and we're lucky to have the connection that we do. But even with an endless amount of energy, you are dealing with things that did not happen overnight. And the uptick or changes that you're affecting are to some degree also incremental. How do you keep wind in your sails and sort of keep at it?
It's funny.
Is it your mom? Because she's terrifying. I do whatever she says anyway.
So do I. No.
Yeah, totally.
No, but it's funny because I actually have to be the person that says, okay, you guys, we need to take a break. We need to take a step back, level set, reset ourselves. Because it does get, especially, I still live in the neighborhood, you know, and so I live and work in an area that I'm concerned about. So it's hard not to take that home with you. It's hard not to answer calls after, the 9 to 5.
That's
and,
right.
If you've got an emergency, you've got a resident who needs something. But I've been really intentional about going away,
Boundaries.
taking time off, and like you said, setting those boundaries. So.
Do you have a person you have in mind or that you think about when you are the voice for that neighborhood in other communities or in other settings that you believe that you're advocating for?
Absolutely. I mean, I think about Mr. Austin across the street, that from my childhood home, who brought us pears when we were kids from his pear tree. I think about Miss Mary just down the street, Mr. Rivers, who is also one of the founding members of Junction Coalition, talking to us about the history of Junction and, where we started versus where we are now and how do we keep that going. I think about even the youth especially. I've had the pleasure of, crossing paths with so many kids, my age, older, younger, and that peer-to-peer interaction was just, hopefully it was as impactful for them as it was for me.
How do you not, you're such a delightful person, you always are kind and friendly to everyone. How do you not just stay mad all the time, right? About the systematic problems, right, in our world that have caused so many of the issues to the people that live in your neighborhood. How are you not just mad?
Yeah, you know what? It helps to have a sounding board, with your team, with your colleagues and your friends. Folks who are also exposed to the same work. There are times where absolutely like, oh my God, did we just get this call? And we've been able to build a better relationship with the city of Toledo, but that wasn't always easy, trying to maneuver through folks' assumptions, through
small p politics.
Exactly. Politics, all of it. It's not easy. And so I think having a very strong support system and having folks outside of the work also helps. So you have your folks inside who understand it, can, relate, but then the people outside who are removed from it that give you fresh perspective, that give you an opportunity to say, hey, Lex, let's just go and grab some ramen, and just hang out, whatever. That I think that makes the difference, and to just be candid with when you are tired.
When you are tired,
yeah.
If you could wave a magic wand and money and the city and all of those other concerns you have to worry about was not a thing.
Yes.
What's the first thing that you would do for Junction? No budget. It's
no
just
budget.
like
You know what? I would transform Swan Creek. So that it is accessible and that we can have recreation, fishing, all of those things happen, because I think there are so many untapped resources in the neighborhood that folks, I don't know if folks even know Swan Creek extends that far and just cuts through the southern part of Junction. Like, it's in our backyard and it is an untapped resource. So, and I would probably plant even more trees.
This is not work that you guys do alone.
Yes.
You've got partners around the community that are
Absolutely.
helping, both as funders and as other just boots on the ground partners. Talk to me about Community Foundation and what their partnership has meant to you guys.
Well, the Toledo Community Foundation has been amazing in investing and in supporting what we're doing. They're supporting 2 of our programs, one being the YES program, which is our youth environmental stewards And then the other is Joy Sports. So with the Youth Environmental Stewards, we are cleaning up catch basins, we're cleaning up bioswales and rain gardens, and then we're also being able to do that education and talk to children about stormwater management and environmental harms and concerns and pollution. And it's a huge help to the city, because as much as we like to complain and say that certain things aren't getting done, especially on our timeline, they are at capacity. There is a capacity issue for the city, and they can only do so much with the resources they have. So it's a huge help when we can, have that investment from Toledo Community Foundation to support them in their work. And then with the Joy Sports program, we're able to continue to work with students, employ some of those mental health services through sports and camaraderie and sportsmanship and, fun activities for the children during the summer.
Why is the environmental part of that YES program important?
When you think about historically the exposure that community has had, when you're thinking about the aged and old infrastructure within the homes, not just outside of the homes, it all poses a risk to entire families, especially the vulnerable community, vulnerable population like our elders, our children, and our nursing mothers. And so the more that you know, the more that you can be responsible and get ahead of these, toxins like lead, whether that's in the water and the pipes. You can mitigate things like flooding. We are in an area that is at sea level, right? And so we're prone to flooding in our neighborhood, and that is a huge cost burden on top of other costs that folks have in that neighborhood. When you're talking about the potential of living without your water, whether that's because of a leak, whether that is because, turned off due to non-payment, those are all risks. When COVID-19 happened, that's the one thing we were told was to sanitize, and it's impossible to do that without water. And so the more that you're able to educate not just families, but children and build that understanding understanding where does your water come from?
Right.
What is that
magic.
process? Exactly.
Right.
But we've been kind of, raised to just understand you turn on the tap and water's just there.
No problem.
Right.
But to go to Stone Lab and see how the water is tested, to go and visit, the treatment center and see where your water comes from and how it gets treated, to understand that there's a beautiful Lake Erie that we get our water from, that Maumee, as much as it gets flack for its current state, it's still a huge resource.
No
And there is so much promise there with it coming back to being the beautiful river that we know. It gets kids excited. Yeah.
You have this is probably the toughest question that we're going to ask you, because there's a lot of them. But if you had to pick one, a feel-good moment, a program that was successful, even a single family or a child that you helped, and you got to pick one. I'm going to stick.
Oh boy,
I know
that is the toughest question.
I know. Well, that's
Sign of success.
This is like crossfire. You're a very humble person from a very humble family, and your community is the better for it. But you got to pick one of the many. So I know there's many. Let me get you that jail-free card.
Ah, boy. You know what? I think it is so we have a garden called What Blooms on Bloom, and it's on Bloom Street. And
how'd you come up with that name?
Right? It was, it just kind of fell out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sure.
I'll take full credit. But watching my niece and other children being able to work in that garden, there's a little house, like playhouse, that is planted in the garden. So they're learning how to harvest, but they go and play house and be kids.
Want to be in there.
Right. Yeah. They want to be outside. They want to be in the garden. They want to be immersed in the work that we're doing. So, and then Mr. Austin, and seeing that multi-generational, just interaction.
Yeah.
You got a child who's like 8 years old and this older man coming together. He's showing, what he knows, passing on that knowledge of how to do this and that with plants. He's got his incredible green thumb.
Yeah.
So I think that memory of seeing them in the garden together is one of my favorites.
Okay, we're going to transition.
With Alexis Smith from the Junction Coalition. All right, buckle up. It's now time for
Gretchen's Wacky Quiz.
This is fun. I love it.
I'm going to ask 4 rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Gretchen's going to have you describe Toledo in one word, and you and Matt will list the 9. best things in Toledo. That is the 419. Here we go.
You got it.
Are you better at saving or spending?
I'm quite good at both.
Then it's spending.
Spending for sure.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
Ooh, not replacing the toilet paper roll.
Yes.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
just crazy.
The last person in there, come on.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the most exciting thing you have done on a dare?
Oh boy.
That we can talk about on public radio.
I was gonna say PG-13.
Yeah.
Most exciting thing. I don't know, maybe a ding dong ditch.
There you go.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
How would you describe the perfect day?
Perfect day on a beach.
Love it.
Anywhere on a beach.
What's the one word you would use to describe the city of Toledo?
Ooh, potential.
Okay.
There you go. All right, we're going to do 9 together, right? 9 of your favorite
Okay.
things about the city. Fire away.
Wonderful. The food.
Yep, love it. What's your
Met-
best? Go ahead.
Metro Parks.
Yes, ma'am. All right, give you 2 for that.
The zoo. The zoo.
Sure.
Mud hens.
Yeah,
University of Toledo, because I'm an alum.
there you go. What'd you study?
Bioengineering.
Bioengineering? I almost
Yes.
did that too, but I realized I was dumb.
No, stop it.
You got 2 more. Oh. What's your favorite place to eat?
Favorite place to eat? Ramen Kango Yakitori.
Yeah.
That place is amazing.
All right, you got 1 left, bub.
Oh, one left.
You better mention your mom or we're going to get it.
My mom, absolutely. Oh my God.
Very subtly said you better mention your mom.
Alexis, you brought some friends with us. Who are we going to talk to next?
You're going to talk about Alexander Deviney, who is on our environmental team at Junction Coalition, and then Sister Maria Czech, who is the grandmother of Junction. She has been a part of the coalition since its conception. So
Are we allowed to call her grandma?
absolutely.
Okay, good.
She prefers it.
Okay,
actually.
good.
Perfect. All right, when we come back, we'll continue this conversation. It's
Thank
the
you.
419, powered by WGTE.
To me, community means connecting to others.
I'm Donnie Miller, and welcome to The Point.
We're a community committed to education. Discover new ideas, dive into exciting subjects, and engage with the world around you.
I would send them personally a t-shirt. Crime doesn't pay in the old West End, pass it on. That's how we cleaned up the neighborhood.
Vision loss for people is not the end.
It's a story, it's the next chapter.
WGTE Public Media invites you to Get Out and Play Day.
The 419, 7 a.m. on YouTube, 3 p.m. on FM 91, and 6 p.m. on WGTE Connects. It's the 419, powered by WGTE.
WGTE, where you come to watch, listen, and learn.
Welcome back into the 419, powered by WGTE. We're talking with our friends from the Junction Coalition. We're joined now by Xander and Maria. Grandma, I think, as we were told to call you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
What brought both of you to Junction Coalition?
When I retired from teaching, I looked for an exciting thing to do. And I happened to meet at a meeting Alicia Smith. And I thought to myself, that is a leader that I want to support. I don't want to be in charge of anything. I want to follow someone and support someone who may need the help, may or may not need the help. After 50 years of teaching, I was interested in going back to research, reading, and writing, and discovered that I could do all of that working with Alicia at the Junction Coalition. So I've been with Alicia from the very beginning. Although the Junction Coalition really arose in people's hearts and minds prior to my being there, we consider its official beginning as the water crisis in Toledo, because Alicia sent out her children and her children's friends to carry water to various people. And water came from Detroit, as far away as Detroit and other places, in order for, and was distributed in the Junction. Still to this day, the only way to contact every single person in the Junction is to ring every single doorbell.
Yeah.
Although folks do have new technology that they're using, we don't know how well versed they are in that technology. And so we put something on every single doorstep.
And the water crisis you're referring to, just to interrupt briefly, is when the algal bloom shut down the water and people in their home didn't have water in their homes for a period of time. Yep. Okay.
And every single doorbell in the Junction was rung by the family, by friends of Alicia's children, and so that the needs of as many people as possible were accommodated then. And so the very first activity that we took on was to study how to provide safe, clean water to the community. And that's where I found myself really busy, because I tend to be kind of a lakeaholic. I love the Great Lakes. I've taken students to other Great Lakes to see what clean water really should look like after seeing the algal bloom in Lake Erie. And so I began to devise a little educational pieces on what clean and safe water looks like and what it takes to deliver clean and safe water, and what it is that really caused the crisis in Toledo. Not necessarily how it could have been averted, because it could have been, averted, but creating those communication pieces that people need to understand what's happening, why it's happening, and how can we deal with it? How can we cope with it? But also, how can we deal with it and remedy the situation?
What did you teach? What did you teach, and where did you teach?
My last teaching stint was 23 years at Lourdes University, where I handled the majors courses and also the environmental science courses. I developed the environmental science major, and so then was able to take several groups of students to Lake Superior, all the way to Lake Superior.
Wow, cool.
And so they experienced where Toledo water comes from, because it trickles down to us from Lake Superior. So I was in the biology department all of that time at Lourdes University.
And Xander, what about you?
So I started with Junction last summer. I had just wrapped up a previous internship with a local law firm. Wonderful people over there, by the way. And I wanted to expand my horizons a little on my work experience. I wanted to work on environmental policy, ecology, science, fields like that. And it was my former environmental policy professor at the University of Toledo, go Rockets, who referred me to the Junction Coalition. And I started in about September, and I've loved what I've been doing there ever since. But really, I think it's more than just the referral, because back in the 50s and 60s, that era of the Junction neighborhood, my grandmother actually lived there for a good while. So I think it's kind of like a fate type deal, like a full circle moment there. Yeah. So my family started in Junction, and now it's coming back to Junction.
And so are you working in the YES program that Alexis was just talking about?
Yes, I am going to be involved in some capacity in the YES program. I was forwarded the information, and I have reviewed it, and like I said, it's part of training that next generation of the green workforce of Toledo.
What surprises you about what young folks your age or younger don't know about the environment or don't understand about what's happening in the environment?
I think it really boils down to, I'd say, like the general consensus of where pollution comes from, factories, plants, places like that. I think something that needs to be more widely analyzed are all sources of pollution, because it doesn't just come from those factories and plants. It comes from landfills. It comes from agriculture. The Maumee River is a very good resource for Toledo, but yes, the its condition is the result of agricultural runoff. And I think that should be more widely studied so that there can be a greater focus in mitigating things such as agricultural runoff on top of the restrictions on runoff from factories and plants.
What is the biggest misconception that the community has about this neighborhood? That as you spent time in this neighborhood, something you've learned about it, that you think the rest of Toledo should know about Junction Coalition?
The biggest misconception about the Junction neighborhood to me is that people think it's a rough neighborhood. It's not. The population is majority in the retiree age, or like 50s to 80s, somewhere in that field. And it's not a bad area. It doesn't have a very high crime rate, honestly. And I think that's the biggest misconception about the neighborhood. It's a good blue-collar neighborhood and with good people and the reason that misconception came up was because of the historical disadvantages that the neighborhood was put through.
Right. What about you, sister?
Oh, misconceptions about the Junction. I'm sorry. I really don't. Well, I know the rest of Toledo. I know Toledo well. I've lived in Toledo for quite some time, but I really don't have my ear to the ground as far as what the rest of Toledo thinks. Toledo is its neighborhoods,
right?
And each neighborhood has distinct flavor, distinct character, distinct culture, but also its distinct problems, so that the concentration of neighborhood organizations is meeting the needs of the people regarding those problems. And it would really be advantageous for those communities to look at the things that Junction has done over these past 10, 12 years, because we've created some good models of how things could be done. We've done quite a bit of pioneering, of course, with Alicia Smith at the helm. Very much has depended on her ability to network, not just in Toledo, but nationally on various stages as she's gone to conferences. She's made many, many good friends for us. And these are friends that every community like the Junction in Toledo needs.
Right.
And so we use the word coalition because we really want to work with others. We really want to help others. We want to be an example for others. But in return, what can those communities also do for the Junction? We have a motto, do nothing to us without us. So no one comes into the community and just starts canvassing the neighborhood without letting some leadership in the community know what's going on. The city of Toledo knows that you don't send in a troop of trucks without letting someone know what's going on. And that's a lesson that folks have learned from the Junction.
So we talk about, go
50
ahead.
years in education, time at Lourdes, the Sisters of St. Francis of Sylvania, environment is such a important pillar to the work that you're doing. Why is that important for the next generation to value environment?
Because I've approached environment more as an academic, I've had to remember these are young people who are already leaders and who are going to be the next generation of leaders. And so I've tried very much to humanize the environment, without being anthropomorphic, getting students wet and dirty in various wetlands and waterways in Northwest Ohio. So I think I've taught Toledo to Toledoans by taking them to Swan Creek, to 10 Mile Creek and the Ottawa River, to the Maumee River. They've actually stepped into those waterways so that they understand just the importance of water and that nothing happens without water.
So we talk about the source water and the environmentalism as it relates to that, and the activism relates to the water that we ultimately drink. We also talk about lead in the water, lead in the pipes. The City of Toledo had undertaken a pretty large project replacing the street to the house pipes. Still concerns about people's homes. I know you have a lead-related event coming up in July. Can one of you guys give us a little information about that?
Of course. So, on top of the environmental team, I am also on Junction Coalition's designated lead team, where we handle lead-related concerns not just in Junction, but in the Toledo area in Ohio. And I'm gonna say this: there is no amount of lead that is safe in the human body, and there's serious risks that come with lead exposure. You know, there's cognitive issues that can be developed. There's physical issues that can be developed. Sicknesses can be developed as well, and in some cases it can be fatal.
It can't be reversed, right? Those outcomes.
Irreversible.
By and large, right?
Yeah. And children aged 0 to 6, that is the most important age to make sure you are tested for lead, to make sure you are lead-free, lead-safe, because that is where a lot of those issues develop and form. And that's what this event that we're hosting Thursday and Friday, July 23rd and 24th, at the Toledo Main Branch Library. That's what we're hoping to do there. We're hoping to spread awareness on the risks of lead exposure and how you can avoid lead exposure. Like, if you already have lead in your system, yeah, that can't be changed. But if you have a kid between 0 to 6, that can be prevented. And
is that a free event?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And registration is on our website, junctioncoalition419.org. Completely free, open to the public. If anybody's interested in coming out, if either of you are interested in coming out, please do. It's going to be very informative.
What's the dream, Sister, for Junction Coalition?
My dream for the Junction Coalition is that every single person in the Junction understands, because not everybody in the community knows what we're doing. Not every person in the community, not every household knows how to contact us. But my dream would be that every household uses the Junction Coalition as kind of a sounding board, as a household name, so that we reach as many people as possible and use the ripple effect from that, because grandparents impact their grandchildren. Those grandchildren go back home and impact their parents.
Right.
They may impact their classmates in some way. So spreading the word about the good things that the Junction does is hard, but that would be my dream for the community.
Beautiful. What about you, Xander? What's the future hold for you as a young leader in our community? What do you see both for Junction and for yourself?
So for me, I'm actually hoping to move into environmental ecology. I'm starting my master's degree with Unity Environmental University this coming August.
Great. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And the future for the Junction Coalition for me, I believe to not be just a coalition for Junction, but to also be the Junction Coalition for Toledo. So we do a lot of work around Toledo with that focus in Junction. I hope that one day the Junction Coalition can gain that citywide influence, and we are taking steps toward that. And I'm very excited to see where this organization goes with that. Sorry, I'm nervous.
Thank you both
No,
for your
you're
work
good.
and your commitment, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, you guys have been fantastic. Thank you so much. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Kimberly Rosinski from the Victory Center, talking about the great work that they do with patients diagnosed with cancer. We'll be right back on the 419.
Support for the 419 comes from Witro Wealth Management, where we understand that your financial path is personal. Advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. More information at witroadvisors.com.
Destination Toledo. Whether you're a local or a visitor, Destination Toledo invites you to explore the region and be a tourist in Toledo. Find events, dining, and things to do at visittoledo.org.
WorkSpring. HR issues and employee well-being go hand in hand. WorkSpring supports employers through compliance, training, and wellness because healthy workplaces don't happen by accidents. Learn more at workspring.org.
Toledo Refining Company, a subsidiary of PDF Energy. Toledo Refining Company is a supplier of fuels that keep our region moving. Located in Oregon, Ohio, the refinery processes crude oil into gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other petroleum products.
And TARTA, celebrating its 55th year of connecting Northwest Ohioans to their community. More information at tarta.com.
Welcome back into the 419, powered by WGTE. We're joined now by Kimberly Rosinski from the Victory Center. Thank you so much for being here.
Welcome. Thanks for having me. You called me Kim earlier.
It's
Kimberly.
It's Kimberly. I did that and I said it and I'm like, that's not what I.
So is it?
Did you know?
Is it Kimmy?
Did you know?
It didn't feel right.
Kimmy?
So
You don't.
immediate
She will
family
fight you.
calls me Kimmy, and
Oh,
we can
really?
start this with a funny anecdote because my sister, I'm Kimmy, right? So my niece and nephew call me Kimmy, Aunt Kimmy, whatever it is. But when my sister was dating her now husband, she was talking about me fondly and memories, and we went to college together, my sister and I. And she's going, oh yeah, Kimmy this and Kimmy that. So I meet her boyfriend at the time, and he goes, hi Kimmy, it's nice to meet you.
You're like,
and I
that's
go,
not allowed.
we're gonna have some problems here.
Yeah, I do that. So I will. So my thing is,
I love that.
People will call me Kev.
No.
I call you Kev.
And my thing is like, if you ask, can I call you this?
I never asked.
The answer is always no. Like, as if you have to ask. But like some people get away with it. So,
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
Kimberly, I got it
Thank you
right.
so much.
So talk to us about what is the Victory Center?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Victory Center in 2026 is celebrating 30 years.
30 years.
Of hope and service to the community. This has been 3 decades of meeting people with cancer diagnoses and helping them with non-medical services. They already have a doctor. Hopefully they've already been assigned to a nurse navigator. We are there to take care of the mind, body, and soul. And that's what our original charter said. In 1996, when we were launched, this was a group of oncologists who came together and said, we're not seeing the patient for enough time. And they didn't have enough time in the day to see everyone for the expansive amount that they need to talk to them, provide resources, but also listen, you know?
Well, I never knew that. That's so interesting that it was started by oncologists because there's so many related things that you don't think about for someone that's going through cancer treatment. I mean, transportation and childcare and getting stuff done around the house and just nutrition and someone to talk to. I mean, it's everything.
Those are incredible examples.
Yeah.
You know, we find that people have these barriers in their lives, and it may be just that they don't have a strong support system at home. You know, a lot of people are very lucky to have a husband, a wife, kids, family members, community, work colleagues that really rally around them. But the best thing about the Victory Center is you can come there and you can say, gosh, I got this treatment and I'm feeling X. And someone else in the room is going to go, I know exactly how you feel.
Talk to me about that. I mean, that for folks that are sitting in the doctor's office and they hear the C word for the first time, what are you hearing from those folks about what that feels like and the relief that the Victory Center can provide to those folks?
Yeah, so oftentimes people aren't sitting in the office. We have someone who was on her way to get a Christmas tree with her kids and she got the call while she was in the car.
Oh my gosh.
You know, and so cancer doesn't have biases. We talk about things all the time having one side or another side or parts of the spectrum. Cancer doesn't care. And honestly, the way that it affects people's lives is different based on how they approach things, who their oncologist is, what phase in their life they're in. We have people at the Victory Center who are teenagers who are going through cancer while they're quitting soccer because they can't continue with their sports at school, but they're worried about an exam on Friday, right? And they also have infusion, and they also have chemo, and they also have this date on the calendar for a future surgery. And then we have people who've gotten their diagnoses in retirement, and they have to worry about the financial aspect. This money was socked away for me to have my bucket list items checked off. and now we're worried about making sure that we can afford prescriptions. So all of those things that fall under the umbrella of cancer, the diagnosis is that first step, yes. But for us at the Victory Center, we call everyone a survivor, because day one, you are surviving something that you didn't ask to happen to you, that you didn't ask to be thrust upon you in your life. And everyone in the family goes through cancer with you. So it is the person who's diagnosed. It is the driver and the caregiver.
When can a person become involved with the Victory Center? Like, is in the level of like those first calls, like, do you need to know what you actually need to reach out?
Yeah, so we have kind of like two sides of the spectrum of what we offer. When we have programming, you can come at any time and enjoy a yoga class or art therapy. When we're talking about something like body work, we have to know if you have a history of blood clots, what medications you're on, so that you can get an oncology massage safely, and we can administer that with all of our beautiful trained therapists. So when someone calls us and tells us that they've gotten a cancer diagnosis, or that the doctor has said the C word, then we find out a little bit more information. What's the chemo treatment plan? Do we have a surgery scheduled? And what are those medications? And with just that little bit of information, just that first diagnosis, we can get them in and get them signed up for all of our amazing resources.
What was the kind of aha moment for you? I mean, you and I first met when you were working in television.
Yeah.
You were a meteorologist at the NBC station here in Toledo, so folks may recognize you from that. But kind of moving to the other side of the camera a little bit.
Yeah, 100%.
Talk to me about kind of the aha moment for you when you realized, like, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
The aha moment looked like this. You ready? Here's your COBRA paperwork.
You're like, oh no, I got to pay for this.
No, jokes aside, you know, TV was a really wonderful industry. It is something that I still carry with me today because there's a skill set that you just can't replace, you know? But now at the Victory Center, it's funny because we'll have tours from students. We'll have St. Ursula students come through, UT students, nursing students. And I love talking to somebody who is young, because so early in our lives, we're forced to make a decision about what we're going to do for the rest of our lives.
Right.
And I was so sure, you know, like there was so much confidence in what I was going to do. And doing meteorology for 10 years, being a meteorologist in Toledo, which was an incredibly gratifying city to do this in, because I grew up in Buffalo, New York, so I love the four seasons.
Yes.
I love winter weather. Sorry. But it really was something that I knew I was meant to do, and I enjoyed so much of it. Now, at the Victory Center, I can honestly, truly say to everyone who comes through that my dream has changed. Meeting these people who come through is the gift you think it is every single day. Someone who wants to tell us their story, someone who wants to share with us what's going on with them, someone who is having a tough time at home. And with TV, with weather, I was reaching people, but through the camera, with that distance. I held like a weather school on Zoom during COVID. Like, it was really cool to have people in the chat going, my kids are learning something, this is great. But now I get to hold the hand of someone who's got bad news. Or I get to be there on a really good day when they get great news.
Right.
And I get to be the first person sometimes to hear that information. And that I consider to be such a gift.
We do want to talk about your upcoming event, but just for those that may not know, and forgive my, I don't know this, the Victory Center has an actual physical space, and where is that?
We do. We have 3.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So we have our flagship office. We've been in there for, I think, 5 years. We moved a couple of years ago. In Toledo, near Wildwood Metro Park. The University Trail runs right behind us.
Okay.
And so that Toledo location is where you can get things like support groups, welcome orientations, one-on-one counseling. We have massages, facials, reflexology, and Reiki, which is a really great energy work, deep relaxation. And then we also have art therapy, yoga, light exercise, and other programs like aromatherapy. You were talking about things like nutrition. We have healthy habits classes, and really just try to be well-rounded. All of that, kind of pick it up and move it, is also inside Mercy Health Hospital in Perrysburg.
Oh, nice.
We have a smaller office, but that's where we house our wig bank. And so if anyone is experiencing hair loss due to cancer treatment, they can come in. We've got probably over 400 wigs at this point.
That's amazing.
A lot of them are paid for with grants and community support. We are 100% privately funded, and so there's no government support. But it is really lovely when someone comes in and they go, I can take this home for free?
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, you can take it home for free. It's yours now. So the Wig Bank is in Perrysburg, and then duplicate that again. And we have an office in Defiance as well.
That's great.
I had a privilege of being a celebrity waiter at your celebrity
We're
wait
so
night
grateful.
at the Pinnacle. It was a blast. Such a great event.
Yeah.
Everybody was having fun and supporting a really important cause. That is one of the ways that you guys raise money to support your mission, but it's not the only way. You've got, you know, some are small, some are big, some are low to the ground, and some are a little bit higher.
No, you're really stretching the metaphor
Wait,
there.
take a drink.
Tell me what's coming up this fall and ways people can support the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. With our private funding, we have these 3 major fundraisers. The fashion show, which you would both be amazing in next February.
Done.
Super fun, really inspirational, and that event sells out super fast. We're at the Hilton Garden Inn for that in February. Then we do our Celebrity Wait Night, which again is just a really great way to bring the community together. And then in September, I don't know, like I wish I had the answer to this, but I don't know how the woman before me, Karen, went to our board of directors and said, we want to launch this fundraiser where people rappel off the side of the building. And our board of directors was like, yeah, sure.
Obviously, the lawyer wasn't at the meeting that day.
Right, exactly.
So Over the Edge, coming up in September, September 4th, and people legitimately rappel down the side
And these are mentally well people.
Downtown building. I mean, how many stories is this building?
This is not AI. These are real people choosing of their own volition to do this. We're on a 16-story building. It is the former Toledo Edison building.
Okay.
It has got this gorgeous, plain concrete face. And so instead of going down windows and kind of waving to people on the way, you're going down the front of the building where it's this blank concrete face. And it's 225 feet. I am not responsible for the safety of our participants, so that should provide you with some comfort.
Yes.
Someone is.
Experts.
Okay.
Experts. With a capital E. So we bring in this company, Over the Edge Global. They work out of Nova Scotia, Canada, and across the entire North America, really. They do these events every single weekend. I called someone the other day, and he was like, hey, I'm on a roof. Can I call you back? I'm like, yep. So they come in, they've got the ropes, all of their equipment is totally up to standard. They do ropes checks throughout the day, so if anything looks amiss, they've constantly got their eyes on things. And then they harness you up, you've got gloves and a helmet and a radio.
A helmet would help,
Mayday,
obviously.
Mayday.
I mean, I get that, you know, this is, for many people, the most, I say this and I'll fix it quickly, but like they say, the most terrifying thing they'll ever do.
Yeah.
But the reality is, you know, your mission is supporting folks who truly are facing one of the scariest things they can face with a cancer diagnosis. And so this is an opportunity for the community to say, you know what, these heroes can face this battle, I can face that one. I tell people, I'm not afraid of heights.
No, of course not.
I'm afraid of falling from those heights. And so
What's at the bottom of that fear?
we need to make a commitment for our show to support what you're doing. And so I am ready to make the commitment right now that Matt Killam will go over the edge.
He pretty much already is, metaphorically, over the edge. So it's fine. He can now do it physically.
So talk me through, so we sign Matt up to rappel over the edge. What happens next?
Absolutely. So going over the edge is a multi-month process. And sometimes you won't hear from me at all. But if someone is out in the community and they're raising money for the Victory Center, I'm going to make sure that they have access to me because you're doing the legwork.
Right.
It's amazing.
Right.
Some people will do fundraisers through work. Some people will do them with corporate sponsorships. And some people will just rally their friends and neighbors. For $67.50, I think, per story, you can raise money to go over the edge. So there are really creative ways to do the fundraising. And there's a lot of time. So we're fundraising through the summer. Everyone who's registered is on our website with a bio and a picture. Your why. Why are you doing this? And, you know, I think it's great that you said that. Last year, someone touched the ground and someone ran up to him and said, oh my God, Jim, I thought you were afraid of heights. He goes, I am. I'm more afraid of cancer.
Yeah.
And it's so poignant to know that people are doing this to reflect the bravery that we see every single day, the courage that is really at the forefront for someone who has this diagnosis that didn't ask for it. And then there are these people who are volunteering to do something that does scare them.
Can you announce any other people that are doing it so far that you know are going to be doing it in September, or is it too early?
So as of right now, we've got about 40 rappellers registered, which is incredible. We've got a really great roster of people. Isabella Week, who does the Toledo Mindfulness,
We've had
is
her
going to
on
go
the
over
show.
the edge.
Her hat is behind you.
Yes. Yep. It's just going to be really great to see these people. We always have rappellers from our media sponsor, WTOL, from 13 ABC, Claire Mitchell, Ethan Watts have done it before. And it's a really, really special event. We had a climb for a couple of years. So that was a little wild because you would climb the building and it would just kind of lock your progress. And so Claire did that, which is crazy. So big shout out to her. She seems a little fearless to me, but it'll be a roster of 86 people who will go over the edge on September 4th.
Wow. And then can people go out on September 4th and watch this happen from the ground?
Oh, it's
I've never
actually
been to
such
it.
a fun event. I've been there a few
Thank
different
you.
times. It's great, and the energy around it.
And do
cheering
you
for
know
folks.
when your person is coming over?
Yes.
Yeah, you can see them.
We'll whiteboard it out so that everyone on deck upstairs, if you get upstairs and you're like, I need to take a minute, or if you get upstairs to the roof and you go, I need to go now, because otherwise I'm backing out, then we can rearrange the order of when people actually get on the rope.
And I think
so
this
then
is
we radio from the roof and whiteboard it out.
You
who's
said
on
this
deck.
is the 10th year and no one has ever backed out.
No one has ever backed out.
That's impressive.
All right, so
It's a great
September 4th.
statistic.
People want more information on this. Where can they find it?
It's OTE4victory.org, and that's the number 4. So you can find out more about the Victory Center, more about going over the edge, and certainly more ways to support us, volunteer, and get involved.
So when I get into the office today, I can go to that website and I can sign Matt up.
Yeah.
And so then it's booked and we're done.
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect. All right,
Yeah.
Matt, you're in.
You're
That's
in.
what you get
You're in.
for cutting out on the show
That's
early
right.
today. You're going over the edge. And we'll support you in doing it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Kimberly, we appreciate it. We'll take a break. We'll be right back to wrap up this edition of the 419.
You laughed with us. You learned with us.
Hi, neighbor.
We made sure your childhood was special. Memories that could only be provided by PBS. For generations, we've given you programs that made a difference. Programs that entertained, informed, and inspired. And today is no different. This is WGTE Public Media in Toledo. It's where you belong.
Welcome back into the 419, powered by WGTE, as we wrap up this Tuesday edition.
Tuesday.
Yeah, great guests.
Yes.
Junction Coalition doing such incredible work
Such good people.
in the community. I loved Xander's perspective of the Junction Coalition for Toledo.
Yep, I like it too.
And taking the work outside of the neighborhood and really inspiring change across the 419. And of course, Victory Center, Kimberly and the team there doing incredible work. I'm excited to see Matt go over the edge.
Me too.
September 4th. We might have to do a live show.
Yes,
out from-
absolutely. We'll
out
do a
from there.
podcast on the roof.
We'll mic him as he comes down.
Yeah.
We'll talk to him the whole way down.
I don't think that would be allowed per FCC regulations on the air.
The things that he is going to say. If you missed any part of the show, 7 a.m. on YouTube, 3 p.m. on FM 91 or 6 p.m. WGT Connects channel 30.4. Thanks for joining us. It's the 419, powered by WGTE, presented by Witro Wealth Management.
The 419, powered by WGTE, is made possible in part by supporters like you.